Thank you, Katie. I'd like to now call this Charter Club Committee meeting to order. We have Otto, we have Karen, we have Judy, we have Tom present for our meeting. That is a quorum. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the amended minutes from our February 9th Charter Club Committee meeting. Are there any other amendments to those minutes? Hearing none, the amended minutes will stand as written. Hello, Anita. Anita has now arrived. And I believe I did say that Lyanne has been excused from this meeting. Next item on the agenda, new business updates. Riley, you're up, please.
Thank you, Donna. Just a quick update on the RR&P update is you all have your new books in front of you. Those will be distributed to the club presidents along with the updated club bylaws. And I'd like to thank Dory for all the hard work she's put in on that. As far as the COVID update, metrics are moving in the right direction. COVID cases and deaths have decreased. We have approximately 18,000 individuals that have received the vaccine here in Sun City West, which is very positive. It's a large majority of our population. And opening it up to the 55 and older will basically encompass all of our residents. I would like to ask club members to stay vigilant, though, and we must continue to mask up and stay in when we're indoors and keep social distancing. As you all might have known, and I hope you do, there was a press release out yesterday. It gives the opportunity for all the clubs to reopen. Those that choose to remain closed may do so, but all clubs must submit a CR 14 to reopen, even if they're just extending hours of operation. And a software update, IT has been working really hard on this issue, is developing the new software and hardware that will be required to collect the data from the clubs. And this will be taking place sooner than later, if you will. And the information that we'll be receiving from the data, it will assist us in assessing clubs' needs and wants, growth and decline of club usage, and create helpful data for master planning as well. And it'll be essential for us in reviewing space utilization. And we're working on that now.
Thank you, Riley. Next item. Yes, Tom?
All right. Riley, you said something about new RR&Ps.
Yes.
The one I have is revised 5/24 of 2020. What do we do? Is that the revised one, or is there a newer one?
My copy, Tom, says revised 1/21/22/21.
I did not receive, Phil, I did not receive one of the new ones.
I'm on my way.
What do you want us to turn these in? The old ones?
Yes.
Okay.
Hand that to me, I appreciate it.
Yeah, all of your copies right on the front should say revised 1/21 of 2021.
Any other comments from committee members?
Coming up.
All righty, next item on the agenda is pickleball. And the situation here is Kuentz is another site that is under consideration for pickleball. And what is requested of the committee today is just consensus to move the Kuentz site forward for consideration. Ken has requested to be able to speak. I've allowed him 1 minute. So yes, Ken, please go ahead.
Very briefly, I just wanted to say thank you to this committee for their support. We understand with the new decision by the governing board to update the master plan as of March 5th, that it would delay the decision at this point in time. Although disappointed, we thoroughly support the master plan update because we are an emerging and growing demographic in this community, and I'm sure the master plan will reflect that. Ultimately, the growth across the country for pickleball is phenomenal. It's grown by 9.7% year over year the last 5 years, although it's been outpaced here in Sun City West. We've grown 11%. So 64% of the core players are 55 and older, and we're much part of that demographic. The key reasons for this is Sun City West continues to provide state-of-the-art facilities. We provide a club that strives on excellence in our management, our programs, our training, and supporting our members' satisfaction, and over 500 volunteers in making that happen. So it's good news because the fastest growing segment of pickleball across the country is the age 34 to 55, and those are all the people retiring in the next 5 to 20 years. So we're looking forward to it. So from the new 2,000 to 300 new homeowners that come to our community each and every year seeking an active retirement lifestyle, we very much welcome them to participate in our pickleball lifestyle. So once again, the promise of pickleball is a bright one as long as we are able to continue to support it moving forward into the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Ken. I'd like to now go to the committee and ask for consensus to move the Kuentz site forward to the governing board. Otto? Sure, I'm sorry about that. Open for discussion. Tom, go ahead.
Thought it was. Now it's on. Sorry. Last when we had the phone meeting, there was a $165,000 cost at Palm Ridge and $113,000 cost at Kuentz to evaluate where the pickleball was going. Am I missing that? Is that it was in the 50,000 and over budget that Carl brought out?
Right. We received that, and those items were on the preliminary budget, $165 for review of the plans for pickleball, either at Palm Ridge, or $113 for Kuentz.
Okay.
And that was presented in the preliminary budget to our committee at the last meeting.
Right, and at the Properties Committee earlier, they wanted to hold off doing anything until they had more information as far as the plans, rather than, I assumed, and I wasn't on the committee, but I listened to it, and they presented that I felt they didn't want to spend $165,000 or $113,000 until they were sure where the expansion was going to be. And so
Let me just do a little clarity here, Tom. Each committee is presented with specifically, in this instance, the pickleball request for a capital project. And each committee has a responsibility to either yay or nay to move that forward to the governing board for their decision in making that yes or no vote. We, the Charter Club Committee, are responsible for looking at the need for pickleball. And in our meeting, we determined that, yes, we would move it forward as to yes for a need for additional courts for pickleball. And at that time, we were moving forward the need to expand at Palm Ridge. And now pickleball is back saying we would also like Kuentz considered as an additional site. So our responsibility as a committee is to say we're moving this forward for consideration as an additional site for pickleball. Properties, again, is another committee that they will make their recommendation as to yay or nay in moving forward. And again, chartered clubs is just moving it forward, saying, in the instance of Palm Ridge, we said yes to move it forward with a recommendation for Palm Ridge. And now I'm asking for a consensus for a recommendation to move forward the Kuentz site.
okay, and the consensus, that will be brought up. It's not one of those line items that there's not discussion at the board meeting?
It is the governing board will receive the recommendation from the Charter Club Committee, and our recommendation from the previous meeting was to move forward the recommendation for pickleball at Palm Ridge. And today, I am asking for consensus of yea or nay to move the Kuentz site forward to the governing board for consideration. And they, the governing board, will make the decision as to whether that moves forward or not.
Okay, thank you.
Donna, I had a question.
Karen, yes. Is your mic on?
The
Thank you.
figures you give us, are they strictly based on your club members who sign up? And do you have another percentage for people who may be valid rec card holders? They're still able to use the courts, but they're, what's their usage too?
Yes, all of the figures that we've provided to you are based on the Sun City West Rec Center method. I think it's CR4 of capturing people utilizing the facilities. Now, we all know that that system doesn't capture exact data, but it's trend data, basically. In other words, it captures probably 90% of the activity at Palm Ridge and probably closer to 80% of the activity at the R.H. Johnson facility, only because there's a monitor present at Palm Ridge, I believe 16 hours per week, where there's no monitor at the R.H. Johnson facility. Club member data is probably higher as far as accuracy, only because club members understand the value of and the need and the requirement we have as a club to sign in or scan in when you participate. However, a normal resident that plays during open times and makes court reservations and plays with guests and so on typically doesn't understand that. In other words, it's open, they play, they have fun, they go home, and did I sign in? Well, they didn't know I was supposed to, even though there's signage and communication to do so. But it's typical for an outdoor, open-air atmosphere access location. So once again, I strongly support you look at the data. It more reflects what the club is doing than the community, although we still know there's 300 and some pickleball players outside of the club playing pickleball here in Sun City West. And look at the data more as a trend, if you will, in terms of is it going up, is it going down, how fast is it growing, those types of things.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Judy?
Just a question about the R.H. Johnson courts. What is going to happen to them?
The assumption that the club is proposing as we expand, historically there's been what we call the 10% rule for our type of club, meaning that since we are we're not a club restricted facility like a wood shop or a metal shop or even softball to some degree, where our courts are open to resident play. So I guess we're a common facility to some degree. The club does have a priority in terms of scheduling that's been afforded to us, but there's many courts available and are being used by non-club members on a regular basis. Historically, we've donated, or not donated, but committed 10% of the courts. So in this case, today we have 26 total courts in Sun City West, of which 3 are set aside today, over 10%, at the R.H. Johnson facility, courts 1, 2, and 3. They're labeled 1C, 2C, and 3C for community. So what that means as far as the club is concerned is we do not schedule any club program on those clubs ever, okay? So they are open for reservation and walk-on play for a resident. Of course, there are additional courts for walk-on play and for residents because we don't schedule 100% of our courts for club activities all the time. But in the future, when you look at the proposal of expanding to 14 courts at Palm Ridge or up to 18 courts at Kuentz, that brings the total to approximately, let's say, around 40 total courts in the community. Using the 10% rule, you'd say, well, then you have 4 courts you must set aside for that, which historically would probably work at R.H. Johnson the best because that's where we have most of the community play already. But when you set aside 4 of 8 courts, it really relieves only 4 courts for programming, which is too small of a plot, if you will, for activity. We typically have we have 51 different weekly club programs utilizing mostly 6+ courts at a time. So the thought process simply would be is the R.H. Johnson facility would be dedicated as community courts for the community. In other words, we wouldn't schedule any club programs there in the future. We would focus our attention on where our current courts are for the club and also any expansion areas afforded to us. So the 8 courts currently residing, and if you drove by today, they're packed, would continue to be utilized as community courts and not have any scheduling taking place from the club itself. We would ask that if we were pressed for space for say a one-off tournament or something, that the rec center might look at that as an opportunity to afford that space to us for that 1 or 2 day activity.
My thoughts is that Johnson, it's, you sign in by a paper, you know, you
That
just
is
put your name.
correct.
And that presents the problem of people forgetting to sign in. So in the future, if you're doing that, I mean, you might want to consider putting a scanner there or something if you really want accurate data on.
We asked if we could, when we put the scanner in at Palm Ridge, and we were told at the time we'd like to test the scanner at Palm Ridge to see how well that's working, and maybe now we have significant data to afford that. And I believe Katie presented to the charter clubs that there's a new software platform coming to the community for a more accurate and viable measurement tool for clubs to track activities and things, and we would welcome that also.
Yes, Tom?
I gotta think I got it on. Ken, the motion that was passed for the pickleball club talked about a financial commitment of up to $960,000. Is that a figure that's with and/or Kuentz and Palm Ridge? Is that
The policy, the current policy that all charter clubs operate under when it comes to expansion, it states that clubs should participate up to their ability financially to support their growth, okay? So the club has done a very extensive analysis of our ability, and that number is $960,000. Okay, over a period of time, of course, we can't just pull it out of thin air today, but we have the means and the mechanism under the current guidelines and rules and policies that we follow to generate that on our behalf of supporting that growth. Our job is to demonstrate and run a club and grow a club. Your job, hopefully, is to provide us the space and the facilities to operate within. And our job then is to contribute to that up to our ability. So where that space isn't our call. I mean, I'm sure we're part of the discussion in terms of needs and preferences and what it can look like and all those types of things. But ultimately, this land is the association's, and the association governs it. So our commitment is to wherever that may be.
Thank you, Ken.
Any other comments from the committee? Thank you. And I again would like to reiterate that we, this Charter Club Committee, I would like to ask for consensus as to yes or no to move this forward for consideration of the Kuentz site as an additional site for pickleball. Otto? Yes. Karen? Judy? Yes. Tom?
No.
Anita? By unanimous, well, not unanimous, by majority vote, we will move this forward to the governing board. Thank you. I would now like to just make a comment. Kuentz obviously is up for repurposing, and I would like to share with the committee that pickleball is not the only one that would like for Kuentz to be considered. We also have tennis, we've got softball, would like to use some areas over there. We've got boomers, there's been a request. What about a gymnasium? What about a park? We need more meeting rooms. And I would like to just share with the committee that as a committee, we should hear from our community. What do they think? We, as a committee, have a responsibility to search that out. And when we're asked, what do we think? We are a voice that is representing the community. So again, know that Kuentz is up for repurposing, and I would like for the committee to check it out, see what the community would like to see for Kuentz. And we should look at all clubs and everybody within Sun City West. What do they think we should be doing? Yes, Judy?
It's interesting you say that because I've had several comments from people that are asking for a gymnasium, something that they can go and play basketball or maybe go play volleyball internally, and that other places have those kind of things and we don't. A big gym that you can play basketball
We have basketball facilities at Beardsley
outside.
outside, and they also can have volleyball. We had a volleyball place that was completely unused for probably 15 years. That's where the Great Lawn was. There was a volleyball net there, 2 courts. It was a sand beach volleyball, never used, and that's why that was repurposed into the Great Lawn over area. I just, it's not that it hasn't been here, but it's been out there for different purposes that's gone along there. The basketball use is very, 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 very limited out there, very limited. I would say, I'm not casting any disparaging on the wonderful horseshoe club that we got, but they would be considered a teeming metropolis compared to the people who play basketball here. Just so you know.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. All righty. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a question. When you start talking repurposing and as you add things and square footage and stuff, then of course you have to think about not only adding facilities, but adding parking, which requires spaces, which Kuentz parking right now, I know we got a little better, but when it's wintertime, and everybody is actually here, it's pretty bad. Is there any areas in the community, if you start talking like a gymnasium or something, are there any plots of land somewhere that you'd be better off to start from the ground up?
That is a great question, and right now, we have a master plan group that's getting together, and we are going to be looking at all our facilities, all the spaces, and see what is being used to the best use of the club and the association. And we're gonna have, we know we have clubs that have spaces that are way too big for what their use is. We also have clubs that are busting at the seams to go out there. And the step one that we have is we want to take a realistic look at what we have and try to match it up consistently with who needs what space. And again, I'll use my old thing. If the ice skating group wants a bigger rink, okay, is there a spot for it? Are they using it? Do they have enough people to support a bigger use, or do they need a smaller pond? That's the best way I can put it. To the question, right now we're at the stage of saying, what do we have, what matches up, and whatever is left over, then we have the idea. Just as and I know Carl will jump in on this one, to repurpose and refurbish things is financially a whole lot better than trying to purchase land and rebuild and build from scratch. If I remember correctly, Carl, it was $300 and some odd a square foot for new, and refurbishing was about $180 a square foot. If that was last year's number, but it's in the ballpark. It's that. The other thing is, as in Sun City West, one of the struggles we truly have, we don't have any space. Our space is extremely limited. There is no real open land that we have. And what we do is we consistently look, people look at taking spots that are parking lots and putting other things in there. And to your point, you remove parking spaces.
Right, yeah.
Okay, now, does that affect the people that are here? Sure. The other thing is, does it also prevent us from having a number of people that go into our bigger buildings? And not as example, but if we took a third of the parking spots here in R.H. Johnson parking lot, not saying we're doing it, I want, just
no,
as an
yeah,
example.
gotcha, yeah.
Okay, would we limit the amount of people we could have in our social hall based on the parking spots? These are the questions that, until we put the space together, we can't really make a solid decision. And I was speaking with one of my, she was on the board here, Kay Williams. She's a wonderful, wonderful lady and has the best interest of the community always put forth. One of the things is that refurbishing things is wonderful. However, refurbishing things with a strategic plan is what we need to do. I hope that, I know that's lengthy, but I hope
Yeah,
that
no.
answers your question, that we're not just blindly going out there and doing this.
Well, here's your basketball court if you raise the roof.
Well, actually, here, this is like Beardsley. This is like a bunker.
Yeah.
You know, if there's atomic warfare, you want to go to Beardsley Pool because the building's going to be there forever. That's for
That's
sure.
good to know, thanks.
That's for sure. But overall, you know, one of the things that we've had space utilization, we've had club questions and this and that, and right now our general manager has asked us to take a time out and to say, where are we right now? Because we really, as things go on, and I know, you know, we just went through a huge upgrade at Kuentz, okay? Great. I mean, parking spots added, room for people. We find out we have free rooms for clubs that needed it during the daytime. So these are things that we're trying to put together. Do we have underused space? Yeah. Do we have space that's overused? Yeah. And my personal contention on this one is one of the huge struggles we have in our community is to realize that life is different, goes on after 11 o'clock in the morning. We cannot build facilities to accommodate the use between 8 in the morning and 11 in the morning in January and February. It just financially is not there. So, you know, this time of the year, 2 o'clock in the afternoon is beautiful to be outside doing something. But these are the things that we have to educate and move our community and our association forward on those things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would like to just add to your comments that the governing board has assigned a special committee, Space Solutions, and that committee will be dealing with underutilized spaces and potential needs within our community. So thank you very much. Any other comments? All righty, we will move on to 3.03, roundtable discussion. And a couple items that we would like to have for roundtable discussion is, first of all, the possibility of a multi-purpose room. Judy, would you like to?
I guess I'm in trouble, but no, a while ago, I sent a note to Don about this, but when we decided to put Card Players of Sun City West together, there were a lot of discussion with the clubs that were smaller, that were at risk of losing their charter because of the number of people they had. Many of those clubs that we were dealing with had elderly people. And they were obviously taken aback. It was a little emotional by the fact that they were going to potentially lose their ability to play. And of course, the first question that came up was, well, why don't you just play in homes? Well, they had many reasons why not. One had a spouse that was very ill. One had a spouse that just doesn't allow people. They live in those very small condos and they don't have space for people. One club needs a table that has a round top, and transporting that to houses wasn't exactly very feasible. And then we would say, well, why don't you just join the women's club? And frankly, those people didn't feel like they could spend $25. They were right now spending $5 a year on their membership, and they thought that that was a little high. These are also people that going out at night is not exactly the best thing. So my thought pattern was, I think as we're deciding who can have charters and who can't, maybe we should consider alternatives for those charter clubs that may not make it, bottom line, as a chartered club. And I know I've had this discussion with either Phil or, I don't remember, a while too, but would it be possible to have open times in a room every week that clubs that don't meet the numbers can come to and play their cards? Or would it be possible to maybe have tiers of club perks, depending on the membership, with the lowest number of people having the least amount of perks and the higher number maybe having more perks? But it just made me think we should start brainstorming and having a solution for those people that do pay their membership dues every year, their rec fees, but maybe having that room taken away from them. I did talk to gamesters. Of course, that seems to be the potential solution for the situation, but they only charge $5 a year. They don't make reservations. People just come and play, and they can store their equipment there. The only problem with gamesters is it's Saturday evening, and these people would really like a daily alternative to play. So anyway, I just thought I'd bring it up as a potential talking point for us, for people that might be on the cusp here of not being able to have their charter.
Riley, would you like to respond to that? Is this your mic on, please?
Better?
Yes, thank you.
My first comment on that would be, when we're looking at the master plan, I was, as you and I had discussed, Donna, something along the lines of like a commons. I think back to college days where there was an open space where people could come play cards, read a book, just socialize, things of that nature. And that might be something we could look at when we're looking at the master plan. That was my first concept on that. And that would allow people to come in and play cribbage, poker, whatever they'd want to play.
Perfect.
Thank you very much, Riley. Any other comments on that topic?
Yeah.
Karen?
Is there any way with so many churches in the area that to network with some of them to see if they wouldn't be willing to work with some of these groups and give them a facility that they could get together?
If I'll jump in on that one real quick. Yes, they have been reached out in a number of situations. We also tell many of our clubs if they can't or if they don't want to, there's many solutions to this. We also have the foundation. The foundation has many rooms that are available, and that would be part of what that solution would be. It is not up to us. And one of the things is because some people have, and I use it as a craft, but whatever they want to do, the idea is not to take away their ability to do it, okay? But the reality is, and I'll use, as an example, my dear friends at Hillcrest Dance, okay? 10 years ago, their membership was in the 900. Now it's quite a bit lower. What the things that Charter Club and Donna and Riley and Phil and Dory and the staff have actually gotten to the point now, when clubs get to a certain point, we're asking them, hey, our hands up, we're losing members, can you help us? Before it gets to the critical stage that you're talking about, where there's 22 people and they can't keep it. Dory, I know it was a long journey that we had a number, I think there were 5 card-playing clubs that all had, and well, Dory, Sheep's Head was one of them. I don't even know what that is, because it's like something, I think it's something you cook in a pot, but that's another issue. But still, all in all, they joined to become card players of Sun City West. Now they have enough people to keep a charter, to have a room, and then to that point, you did not lose the ability to do what you love to do.
I'm president of Card Players of Sun City West, so I went through that whole journey with Dory and everybody. And, you know, and that you're absolutely correct there, but like, I mean, I hate to call out a club, but there is one that's time that they've been given is early evening. I won't say it.
That's okay. One of the things, and I can tell you that Donna and Riley, because of charter clubs and how important it is and how many people it represents here, they have a weekly meeting, once a week, that they talk about these things. And are there solutions? We all want instantaneous solutions, and one of the things is to get the right solution. Yours, with the Card Player Club, that was a journey. That took probably 18 months to get to where you needed to be, but the solution was good for you. It was. And to that point, you know, the other thing is that when you look at clubs, do we have, are there clubs out there that are being supported by people who are not part of the association, who are not guests, who are just coming in from wherever and being part of it? And that's one of the other issues that we have, is that, you know, how many guests are coming in? If you have a membership of 65 people and you have 200 guests, you got a problem. There's a hands up there. There needs to be a question about what's going on with that. But overall, one of the things that we look at very desperately is to make sure people have the opportunity to continue what they do. And, you know, I mean, you look at it this way. We were having a discussion the other day, and I'm gonna call it a photography club, not of what they do. But they have 2 dark rooms over in the Beardsley facility. How many people truly anymore go out there, buy film, and develop it, and process it that way? Again, when it was there 15 years ago, as our technology and things change, we have to be able to move accordingly. And that's one of those questions that consistently comes up. Where are we today, but where are we going to be 5 years or 7 years down the road, to make sure we're making those strategic decisions that make what's in the best interest of the community, not the community, the association, excuse me, in that way. I hope that answers your question. The idea is that the first thing, when a club has a problem, if they see it going, they need to put their hand up. That's what charter clubs is here for, to help them increase their membership, find where they can go, get them the right space, and give them the help they need. And that is something that I have to say, Donna and Riley and his staff have done a tremendous job in the last 2 years with. It's a huge change in philosophy of what charter clubs was. Thank you, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any other comments? All right, our other topic for discussion in our roundtable is groups within a chartered club.
Which is kind of still continuing on with the same conversation, basically. When we were doing the membership and participation part of the committee here, we were asked a question, and the question was, okay, because in the charters, it says a charter cannot be granted to another group that's doing the same purpose. So in other words, if I have Club A and we do this event, then Club B over there cannot say they want to be Club A, but they want to be B and do the same exact thing. Like I'll just say tennis, just to say, okay, so I got a tennis club going on, and then Judy wants to start a tennis club over there. You're saying in the RR&Ps that they cannot have another chartered club that does that. The question was, okay, so now you got the tennis club, and the tennis club has 400 members or whatever, and the tennis club now has a group of people that want to play pickleball, but they don't want to join the pickleball club. So they want to go and take the courts out and play pickleball and everything else and be considered a club, but they're going under the charter of tennis club. And so the question was, when some of these rooms were being looked at for participation and membership and stuff like that, what is the priority of a charter club? Like, for example, if I come over with the tennis club and I say, I've got 25 people that want to play pickleball, so we want to do the whole Kuentz court or the whole R.H. Johnson court, but yet pickleball wants that court. You know, so where is the, you know, dividing line to say, okay, well, you're not a pickleball club, you're the tennis club. So we have a lot of clubs that have those different groups that are doing things that there is a club already out there, but they're just not joining that club. There's card clubs, there's people that are playing cards that don't want to join, like the euchre club. We have a euchre club, but they're playing euchre on a different day in a different building because they don't want to join the euchre club. Whatever the reason be, I don't know why. You got groups that want to play or line dance, but they don't want to join the line dancing, or they don't want to do jazzercise with the jazzercise group. So how are we defining that to utilize the rooms in the proper way to where the clubs are utilizing the room that are the chartered clubs for that event? I guess that's where the question started.
Well, you're asking me. Okay. I love it. Okay. First and foremost, is my question is all the things, the peripherals that you laid out, I understand there. But my question would be, what is preventing them from joining that club? That is the question. Is it the people? And again, I go back to my ice skaters. Okay, I have my ice skaters and my ice dancers. Okay, if I'm just a skater and the ice dancers say, we want the dancing, what is preventing them from joining that club? Is there a barrier that's there that's saying, no, we don't want you because we don't like the way you comb your hair or something? That's not the way it should be.
Right.
Okay, you know, and look to your tennis pickleball example. Okay, they don't want to join pickleball. Well, what's the question? Why? That's the real question. Why don't they want to? Because is it because they don't want to spend $8 or $10 or $20 it costs to join them,
Right.
or are they being prevented by the people that are there from saying, "Well, you play tennis, we don't want you."
Right.
That's, to me, that's the real question.
Right, but who's monitoring that? As I guess what the question came to us was like, okay, and the reason I think the question came up was because some of these smaller groups were going to be losing their charter or their option to have the room. But then they felt like, well, there's another group of people over here that are doing the same thing, but they're going under a different charter. They're going, and so they're getting the use of a room to go do line dancing, but they're the pickleball club.
Well,
That's where the question came.
That's an absolute question. The question is, we have all these venues out there. What is preventing them from joining it? That's the question. You would have to do the research and say, okay, you're doing, and like you say, line dancing here. Why don't you join the line dance club? There's got to be a reason that preventing that barrier from going on there, and that's the first one. Is it because they don't meet at the time that they want to, or whatever? I mean,
But the answer to that is, we don't have to if you're going to allow us to have a room somewhere else to do our thing.
Well,
That's where the question was, who's monitoring that to say, okay, you can't have that room because you only have 20 people. There's a line dancing meet, they meet on Tuesday mornings. Go check with them and see if you can join that group.
And I think that's one of the questions that we have out here when we talk about where clubs are going to go and what they're going to do.
Right.
How do we get the right people in the right spot? Because again, if you have three, again, and I'm sorry I have to keep using your card players as the example.
Well, that's fine.
Because they had groups of people that, well, I don't want to join this one, I don't want to join that one, because they thought they were going to lose their self-identity in the midst of. Is there an answer? I can't give you an answer right now because I don't know. But the first barrier in my mind is, why won't they be accepted? I mean, I can speak, not speak for a board member, but I have a board member who's part of the bicycling group, okay? Does this person belong to the Sons League Bicycle people? Yep. Does he also bicycle with the Boomers internal group that they have? Yep. Okay. Is there a problem between the two? Nope.
Well, they're not causing a space. But here's my question, okay? And this is my question, and don't kill me, Judy. But the Sun City West cards, we were approached, okay? And I'm on the euchre club. So we were approached and said, okay, you guys have enough members, but we have Sheep's Head, 500, and Pan that don't have enough. So we want to join together and do this. And the reason okay, and maybe I'm blindsided here, but the reason was because they were looking for space and utilization and participation. So they came to us and said, you're going to be able to keep your charter and your, and everything else if you join together. So now we've joined together, and now we have, I don't know how many members. 200. But I have a group of PAN people who's 5 people. So they want to go play someplace else because they don't want to play the same night that card club is playing, which is euchre or whatever you want to call it. So they have to have a space. So how did that help? Because now you're giving a room for part of a group in another space.
Okay, well, again, it depends on what the space is used or not. If the space is empty or not, if they're playing on a Thursday night between 7 and 9, and there's crickets in there and the lights are off, there's not a huge issue with that. Now, again, if it's coming together, I don't see that to be an issue. But if it's an issue that we all want the same pace at 10 o'clock in the morning, okay, that's where Riley and his staff come in there and say, I don't think you can do that. I think you need to do it. And again, it really depends. I mean, you look at, I'm not picking on the card players.
No, that's fine.
Okay? But you look at Club 52. That meets on, I think it's Tuesday and Thursday nights over at the men's club. Okay? They have 150 people. Not even a question about it. Okay? Are they demanding the room? No. Okay? Is the room available to them because it's empty? Yeah. So that's part of the space problem that we're looking at too, making sure that they're the right people in the right spots.
But, and I guess that's where the question came from, was in the process of us joining together. So you have PAN, who is 5 people, but now they're a member of our club, okay, which is a larger amount. But if they want the room on Tuesday, and then you come in to say, well, no, you can't have the room on Tuesday because you only have 5 people here, so we're going to put in somebody else. That was their question, was what's the priority of, because now they're a chartered club.
But now here's the kicker. Here to me is this. This is one of the situations we have when it comes to space. Because it's that room, or do we find them someplace else in our great immense of rooms out here? See, again, that's what it comes down to. One of the struggles that we have, we've always had this room. Okay?
Right.
We've always had this room.
Yep.
Okay, well, guess what? The lights are on, the heat's on, the door opens somewhere else. And there may be a place where you can go have it that's perfectly available to you. One of the things is it's not that designated moment spot.
Right.
That's I think that's what the real underlying question that you have on that one.
Well, that's the one of the questions, but the other question, I guess, goes back to priority of whatever space you choose for that group. What if there's that other group from the pickleball court that want to play cards and they want to use that room, but they're not a chartered club; they're a part of a different chartered club. So who makes that determination? I guess that's where the question came from. Is that a question that we need to work on to give to give rules, or is that something that the board's just doing?
Really, not the board. Really, that would be a staff issue.
Okay.
Not only with staff issue, you have 2 people that deal scheduling, and they can sit down and tell you every hour, every day of every room and every place that the wind goes through, basically.
Okay.
And listen, I'm sure anybody who's been in any problem dealing with Mona and Jan are probably 2 of the most technical people that know about what time and what way the clock goes on where it is. And they do that kind of scheduling, and it really would be more a staff issue. You don't want us involved in that.
Okay. Well, that's the other question. We're talking about this multipurpose room and possibly in the master plan.
Well, yeah.
Does that master plan include anything where, again, going back to your question, as to why they don't join that other group? Is there a group of people that, like, for example, I head up 20 people and I come to you and I say, I want a room to line dance. Is there anybody who says, well, why don't you join the line dancing? Or is there any encouragement, or is there a club that goes out to find out why the 20 people does not want to join? I guess that's the underlining main question probably that was coming up, was how do we get them to join so that the membership will grow and
To my mind, that's what your liaisons are for.
Okay.
Someone puts their hand up and says, the ice skaters over here aren't working with the ice dancers over there. get together, the liaisons go in there, sit with the clubs, and figure out what's the problem, and then figure out the solution, and bring it out there to Riley and his staff. That's why you're a committee, to be able to go out there and be not the governing board people, or the director, or staff, to be able to go in there and sit down one-on-one across the board and say, hey, we're like you, what's the real issue?
Okay. So would there be a criteria that should be in place that we're looking at? Or we just do each one of those incidents? And then who would notify us as liaisons to say, go do that?
Well,
Okay,
Could
could I, Riley, Dory, Phil, would you as staff, being familiar with these issues, like to respond? Is your mic on?
Sure, you can have this stupid thing. I don't use it. Yeah, it was.
Okay, thanks. That was the whole reason to start this whole roundtable conversation. It was a football that we've been passing around for a while, and it was like, let's get everybody involved in this. Phil is one individual. Phil has now gone full-time, and he works with the clubs, but it'd be great to have the liaisons go out and approach these clubs where we are, and Phil can identify those clubs where we're seeing the same activities occurring in different venues through different clubs, and see if we can't create some type of an area where we can utilize space better, bring all these people together at the same time to enjoy the same activity. And that's why we're bringing it up at this time.
Tom, you would like to say something?
I have a question. On page, whatever it is, 4 of the new RR&Ps, right after Chartered Clubs Committee is Chartered Club Council. Is a group formed by clubs sharing facilities or interest to coordinate their activities. Who and where and what is this council?
Okay, the councils, Tom, we have a golf council, we have the theater council, and we have, I have a blank. Riley, help me, please.
And
We have,
and the Charter Club Committee falls under that as well. But the prime example would be the use of the theater council, where you actually have 6 clubs. There were 7, now there are 6. That council was formed for utilization of space and activities within that building, and it works very well. That would be a prime example of the golf as well, when it comes to all the different chartered clubs that fall under the auspice of using the golf courses. They gather once a week to review all of that as well.
So is there a card council?
No, there's not, but I couldn't see why one could not be formed.
Is there a council for each rec center? Because you just said like the theater, is there one like for Kuentz, that all the things that happen at Kuentz, or is there one for?
No, there's
Shelton?
not at this time.
Okay,
But that's something that, obviously, as liaisons, if we found if you go out and speak with the clubs and find a necessity for that, it would be something we could create.
yeah, right now, we just have 2 councils, the golf council and the theater council.
One of the other things, just so we can keep it in perspective too, one of the things that we have in our budget this year is the idea of gathering spot in the bowling alley in that large room that's used to be shuffleboard, could be whatever they wanted to, whatever you want to call it. But it's also the place where you would talk about as an open space to be able to just walk in and have it there. So just so you all know, also, that's also part of the budget. We have dollars put in there for an engineering on it. And the reason that is simply because There are things inside of there, and if I remember correctly, Carl, just nod your head on this one, there's a fire riser room in there that we also have to take into consideration when we're doing anything with that room? Yeah.
Everything in that
Yeah,
would
yeah,
need to be considered.
yeah. There's some engineering questions that we always have to do, and one of the questions that we get, I get bombarded with on our email is how come we didn't do this while we were closed for COVID and this and that, and I'm sure Tom can relate to this, and so can Carl. Whenever you're doing a project here, there's, scope of work, the county permitting, the engineering that goes in, the pre-inspection, the post-inspection, the bidding process, and then also the idea of contractor availability to do this. So a lot of this planning takes much more time than we're used to when we have a house. When you call a guy over, can you start next week? So, that's one of the auspices we have, and one of the other auspices we have is because we're not a town, we fall under the auspice of the county. So the county gives us the rule. We're an association, not an incorporated, we're an unincorporated area, Maricopa County. But to your point of an open area or things like that, that is definitely on there for study this year to go forward. But, again, I also say, when we talk about space utilization and space usage, we also have open spaces at our library, okay? There's always tables there and things like that. We have spaces that we haven't looked at that are available for our own use. And that's one of the big, big questions that we have. It's easy to say, let's build something. It's much more difficult to figure out where it goes. I hope that, not only answers the question, but keeps it in perspective for everything.
The fact that you're looking at it, I think, is a huge positive. It's going to happen. I can tell it. I can read it on your faces. Somehow, they will have a place to play.
I can only say this to you, and I will say that my Vice President, Sue Fitzsimons, my Secretary, Donna Maloney, and my Treasurer, Ann Brown, along with my other board directors, have taken this under severe consideration because it is a space that we can use, and it's a building that exists, and it is an available space for us to use wisely. And that's the most important thing. And I won't see it in my term here, but these guys and ladies have worked diligently to make the best idea possible for this. Thank you.
One other thing, though, I think it says somewhere in the RR&Ps, and unfortunately I'm not finding it right now, about duplication of, I'll use line dancing as an example. Is it okay for the boomers to have a line dancing thing and take space when we have a line dancing club? And I think it falls a little bit against our RR&Ps, or I'm not reading the RR&Ps correctly.
It's Chapter 2, number 4, I believe, E, says that a charter club cannot be created that serves the same person. Basically, it says it can't be, so in other words, you can't have
have the
two
same
line
purpose.
dancing
Yeah.
charters.
Right. And that's what it'd be. And again, you use the boomers, and I'm not picking on them because.
No, it was an example.
Just as an example, okay? If they want to have an event where they have a band come in and they're going to do line dancing, okay, that's not forming a club within a club or a charter within the club. It's an event that they're having. It's not, that's what it comes down to. That's how I've always seen it. It's not that they're trying to say, we're competing with you at 11 o'clock for the same thing. And again, it goes into it. If a group of boomers want to go together and bicycle on a Sunday, do they have to join the bicycle club, or is it a boomer event? That's the real question. That's where it comes down to the question on the semantics of it.
If it's an event, that's not an issue. But when they have it advertised that weekly, they have their own instructor and are giving instructions, that to me seems like a direct whatever, to the line dancing club. And that's not just me, I mean, perceiving it, I don't care. I
No,
mean,
that's where
but
this
that's
question
where the
came from.
questions are
That's where this
coming from.
question came from.
Okay. I'll sit here and tell you, I don't have an answer for that, and I wouldn't, because I look at it this way: if it's directly competing with it, I would have a question with that. But if you, and again, as an example only, I'll use the Boomers. Okay, if they're having line dancing between 8 and 10 o'clock at night inside their clubhouse, and the regular line dancers meet from noon to 2 in the social hall, I don't see that as being a conflict. Because it's a Boomers event on that one, and they're not trying to do a club. That's my own opinion, and I'll die by it.
It's not a conflict, but it becomes an issue when you're talking about a charter club. So let's say line dancing was in question of keeping their line dancing club because of lack of participation, but then you got a whole group of people over here that are doing line dancing on
Or
different days.
space.
But again,
That's where these
Well,
questions
but again,
came
can they, is it a time frame? Is it the people who are, is it, what time do they meet? Can the people here, don't forget too, as our demographics here have changed immensely, there are quite a few people who continue to work who don't get involved until after 4 or 5 o'clock. You know, not that I say,
But I guess the question, we're dancing around the question. The question is, the line dancing group now, you've got a club that's line dancing, and you've got this Boomers group that over here is line dancing on a different day. And they're doing it weekly, so to me, that's a club. So why can't they join the line dancing club and participate in 2 different time spaces? Like, for example, the card playing club is now 4 groups. We
Right.
all don't play on the same day in the same room. Euchre plays on Thursdays. 500 plays
and
on
it goes back
Tuesdays.
to it goes back to the square one question that we had. Okay, why aren't they joining it? Okay, that's the real question. It's not whether they're doing it, whether they're participating or whatever, but what is preventing those 2 groups from being together? And I'm gonna put the onus on Donna's group.
Yeah.
That's what your liaisons are for.
Okay, I would like to stop further discussion here. I think we're kind of repeating our same concerns, and I think that Riley, Dory, and Phil have heard the concerns of the committee here, and Riley and I and Dory and Phil, we will sit down and have further discussion and decide the next step in trying to find an appropriate solution that is best for everybody. And any other comments?
Yeah, Donna, I have a question about groups within clubs, but it doesn't pertain to this particular subject. It's charitable groups within
Alrighty.
clubs. And I was looking here at page 34, item D, and I'm probably shooting myself in the foot, but I belong to Palo Verde Patchers. And we have 2 charitable groups. We do Quilts for Valor, and we do Women's Shelter. We have done number 3, and that all went through the rec center. But I see number 1 and number 2, and to my knowledge, that's the first I've ever seen of that, which the filing of certain forms with the IRS. Is there any way for someone to discreetly to see if we're in compliance on those? Because if we're not, I don't want to get the club in trouble. I don't want to get the rec center in trouble. But I have never heard anyone mention about the IRS forms or where you get them, what you notify them, or if you have to change your club status because you're filing something with the IRS.
We'll have you come in and talk with Dory and myself, and we
Okay.
might bring in Tim on this as well.
Yeah, okay, because I
to
know
do that.
we established a second account, when everything, and it is kept separate when I was president, but I never saw step 1 and 2, and I've never heard it mentioned since then. So I just want to make sure that we're not doing something that could come back to bite all of us, so.
Yeah, we'll make a quick appointment and come in and see
Okay,
us on
sounds
that.
good, thank you.
Great, thanks.
Any other comments? All righty. Katie, do we have any comments from the outside? No additional comments. All righty. No further comments? Yes, Tom?
Do we have liaison commitments? I mean, I'm sorry, I've forgotten. Have we been assigned?
There have been no assignments
okay.
at this time.
All right.
No other comments? I will adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting will be April 13th, 9 a.m. here, Social Hall West. Thank you, everyone.